When do you feel the least Duchess of Sussex?
Oh my God. Sitting here eating a smash burger with you being asked these questions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Chang, and this is The Circuit. One of my favorite parts of making this show is meeting some of the most influential people in the world right where they are most themselves. The goal is to see how they are, who they are in real life, and to see a side of them you've probably never seen. So maybe you've caught me wake surfing with Mark Zuckerberg, swinging golf clubs with Steph Curry, even singing along to Taylor Swift in an electric Hummer with General Motors CEO Mary Barra. Well, my next guest definitely understood the assignment. I went to Montecito to meet Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, who you might know as Meghan Markle. She brought me somewhere totally unexpected, her favorite local brewery. We drank beer. We devoured the best smash burgers I've ever had in my life. Yes, that's beer and burgers with a Duchess. And because she likes an extra kick, she piled on the jalapenos.
I just got the heat from that. I think my eyes are watering a little bit. It's good.
Why does this taste so good? What's so special about this?
It's the squishy bun. It's the crunch in the onion. It's the texture of the meat. They're perfect. It's kind of a perfect meal, and I'm thrilled that you're having it with me.
You know, or you may think you know, Meghan Markle the royal, the tabloid subject, the actress. In 2020, she and her husband, Prince Harry, stepped back from royal duties and moved to California, and an unrelenting spotlight has followed. But on this episode of The Circuit, we're going to try to understand Meghan, the businesswoman. She's just rolled out season 2 of her Netflix show, With Love, Meghan, where she shares tips for cooking, gardening, and hosting. And she's launched a lifestyle brand, As Ever, featuring jam, rosé, and those much-talked-about flower sprinkles that keep selling out again and again. It's the start of a new chapter.
Is someone going to say something about anything? Probably. Once you make peace with the fact that they're going to say something about anything, and that's a hard place to get, where you can make peace with that, then I think you just settle into being yourself.
The question now is, can Meghan have a second act as an entrepreneur and a tastemaker? Can she turn her lifestyle vision board into a lasting business? And can she succeed on her own terms? Here's my conversation with Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex.
So tell me about the look.
Oh my God. Just as you said, I was like, Mindy said that.
We say it all the time. I'm obsessed with it. The Luke.
Yes, when she said it, I thought, who's Luke? Who's Luke? This is Jenny Kane.
It's gorgeous.
I don't normally wear color, but every time I do, people comment on it. So I thought, let's bring some sunshine. I love blue. That's my favorite color. It's gorgeous.
This is Julia Amory, who's another female entrepreneur. Were you able to bring your kids to school today or too early?
No, I'll show you on my phone them clinging to this. I had Lily decided to come underneath the dress. I'm like, no. No, they're in camp and school right now. But no, they got dropped off. We were all leaving around the same time. So I'll see them. I'll be able to do pickup today.
Yeah. And is it fully edited or is it?
Season 2?
Yeah. Is it done?
We're done.
Done?
Yeah, completely done. And there's more fun to come.
Okay.
But yeah, completely locked. So we were in granular, time-coded edits on that while the brand was launching.
Yeah, the timing. Oh my
gosh. And the podcast.
Yeah.
So for me, as I say, love is in the details.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for me to put something out in the world that I'm not so involved in. But to be involved in all 3 at the same time, creatively, that was a big choice. That was a big choice. And also wanting to be so hands-on as a mom.
People think they know who you are. Your story has been told 1,000 ways, but I want to hear it from you. So when you were 11 years old, you protested an ad that you thought was sexist. And I found it.
With
and I want you to watch it because I actually think kind of seeing it again.
Sure. Oh gosh, I remember these, my classmates too. Let's see.
Be done because I
still make that face.
And I said, wait a minute, how could somebody say that? I think I'll write a letter.
I did. I wrote a few. Yeah.
Tell me about that girl and how she grew up.
Well, you know, I grew up in LA, which seems like a rarity for a lot of people these days, those of us who are actually from here. And I had a great childhood, but that time was really fascinating because that day that we were watching that commercial at school was also when the LA riots were happening. And so you have this contrast of the city was going on lockdown. We're very young and don't fully understand what's going on. It was a very tense time in Los Angeles with race relations. And they put on the TV because all of us kids had to stay there until our parents could come and pick us up. That commercial happens to come on. And I remember, look, the boys in the classroom said, yeah, that's where women belong, in the kitchen. And that's really what upset me. It was a very turbulent time in our city and a lot of uncertainty. But the one thing I was certain on in all of this was that's wrong. Let's do something about it. And I wrote a letter to Linda Ellerby, who had a news program on Nick News, and Gloria Allred, and who else did I write to? Of course, the CEO of Procter & Gamble.
Of course.
Of course. Let's go straight to the top. Let's go have a conversation and approach it. I mean, I don't remember what I wrote in the letter, but saying this is how this made me feel, and I don't think this is okay. And if you could change it to people all over America, I think that would be more appropriate. And they did. It was just so empowering to know that at a really young age, your voice could be heard well before social media, where everyone doesn't just have a soapbox. They have a huge, huge megaphone on a global scale. Putting pen to paper wouldn't necessarily suggest that you were going to get the outcome that you wanted, but that was what we had at the time. And so I used that in my little handwriting, same cursive really. And then I went into middle school feeling very confident because I was able to affect change for good. Mm-hmm. And I went into a school that was a parochial school, all-girls Catholic. And Immaculate Heart has a really great history. And it became this really feminist-driven all-girls Catholic school to this day, where celebrations were Mary's Day and about the women of the Bible. And so I do think, whether you're spiritual or religious, it doesn't frankly matter, but when you are growing up and it's so baked into all of the ways that you learn that women are strong, that women have a voice that should be heard, that women support each other, that is so much of who you are. That's in your tissue. And then going to Northwestern, that was eye-opening for me because Chicago is very diverse, and Evanston and the school had diversity, but it was more pocketed than I had been used to in LA at the time. And then, I worked for the U.S. Embassy. I mean, my life, it's been a lot of things.
Well, I mean, that is to say, that girl has been in you since the beginning.
Yes. I think our character, who you've been and who you are at your core, I don't think that shifts. I think a lot of behaviors and habits and roles that you end up playing in your life can bring out the best or worst in a lot of people, but you're still who you are. Yeah. At your core, your values are going to be the same. And I remember, it might be Oprah who had said, what's the difference between when you don't have means and wealth and when you do? And it's like, all it does is show who you are through a bigger magnifying lens. So if you were a kind, generous person before, you're going to be even kinder and more generous. If you treated people a certain way that was negative before, it's going to amplify that. And I think coming from a middle-class family, being able to move through the world as a mixed-race girl, that actually didn't come up for me until I was in college. I knew, of course, that I was mixed, but that wasn't a rarity in the world that I grew up in as a young girl. So that wasn't as defining for me.
Same for me. I'm a mixed race girl too, and I didn't really realize it until I went to college.
Isn't that interesting?
It is. It was so fun watching your old clips, General Hospital,
oh,
Deal or No Deal.
Yeah, that's what Chrissy and I laughed about on season 2 of the show.
Suits, of course. What have you taken from your life in Hollywood to your life today? Absolutely so many applications. And I think there's a reason that if you think about even American history, you look at a president who could go from being an actor to being a president. Mm-hmm. There is something about how you carry yourself, the diplomacy that can come with that. But certainly for me as an auditioning actor, I think that's really defined a lot of how I approach business. You have to have a thick skin. You have to be comfortable hearing no a lot and to not take it personally. And you really have to know who you are, or it can break you. I think it's made me steadfast in how I approach really what I know to be true to the brand identity, which I would say to anyone who's starting out, as you start to build partners and you have more stakeholders, it can be very easy to be swayed. For you especially, is there an inherent tension in trying to be relatable, in showing us yourself, while also being a duchess? No, I don't find, I'm just being myself. I think probably it was different several years ago where I couldn't be as vocal. I had to wear nude pantyhose all the time. Let's be honest, that was not very myself, literally. Okay.
Literally. It's, like I hadn't seen pantyhose since movies in the 80s when they came in the little egg, right? Yes. The drugstore. So that felt a little bit inauthentic, but that's a silly example. But it is an example of when you're able to dress the way you want to dress and you're able to say the things that are true and you're able to show up in the space really organically and authentically, that's being comfortable in your own skin. And that's, of course, had different chapters in my life. But right now, no, I don't feel that I need to prove anything.
Mm-hmm. Season 2 is happening.
Season 2 is happening.
What's your vibe on launch day? Are you zen or are you like gritting your teeth?
Oh, no. Very zen. Yeah. Because it's done.
Yeah.
It's done. I think I sort of approach that with anything that I pour my heart into and create is you've done everything you can. Then you have to let it go. Once I've done that, by design, it also protects me because I don't sit there focused and maybe the team does, going like, oh, how are the numbers? But with the success of season 1 and what people loved about it, I was really comfortable because we had a lot of learns as we went into season 2. And we went into production really quickly afterwards. Netflix was so excited about what they had in season 1. Very unusual to get greenlit for a season 2 before season 1 is even aired.
What were the learnings from season 1 that you applied to season 2?
Small things. Like I could watch it and say, I'm very focused when I cook, but I need to look up more because I made the choice to make the crew a character. I thought that was really, really important to me. Otherwise, you just have a typical stand and stir where I'm in a kitchen by myself. So small details like that, also just managing the time better for guests. People forget the episodes whittle down to about 33 minutes. But that could be several days, each day being 8 hours of filming. And so really realizing what sort of shots cinematically we wanted to keep in there, the level of humor we wanted to keep in. Lots of learns.
How much preparation would go into a With Love shoot? Like, are you memorizing recipes? Are you sharpening your knife skills? Are there hours of taste tests?
It's a great question. A lot of prep. And a huge crew, which I think people often forget. That was a crew of 80 people. From a practicality standpoint, even if you could fit 80 people into your house and your kitchen, I think most of us would say, I want my kids to come in and just see me cooking.
Yeah.
We were at a great house really close by, and a lot of the prep would happen in the prep kitchen with the crew, a great culinary team, and then a lot of crafting. So most of it in the pre-production was inspired by recipes that I loved to make, who I was entertaining, and then test it all out. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of fun.
Any tidbits on season 2 you can give us?
Oh, of course.
Favorite moments, highlights?
Season 2 was so much fun, and I think people are probably going to respond to it the most because I'm even more comfortable in the space. I know the kitchen better. I know how to move through the space. The crew got more comfortable. You settle into things when you've been doing it for a while. But the guests were incredible. So Jose Andres coming on, we have so much fun together and have for so many years. So that was great. And then Jay Shetty and his wife, it was great to work with a couple. Ravi's so sweet and funny. And Chrissy Teigen, really great, fun guest. And I've known her for years. And her husband came on to support her that day at set.
Aww.
So yeah, it was really layered. Our chef who did our food for our wedding, Chef Claire, she's one of the most celebrated Michelin star female chefs in the UK, and that's how I had found her right before our wedding, and we've stayed in touch. And I said, Claire, can you come show me all your ways? So yeah, there's a lot of fun that taps into different chapters of my life.
As Ever is also cooking. Just had another launch.
Yes.
The rosé sold out also in less than an hour.
44 minutes. I was shocked.
I mean, everything is
selling
selling out.
Yeah.
How do you keep up with demand?
In many ways, again, because of my aspiration at the onset, which was smaller. Yeah. It really was. It was a smaller offering, even with the namesake, and originally thinking, American Riviera could be great. Well, guess what happens? If you want to call something a name that is geographically specific, all of your items need to be sourced and manufactured, the bulk of them, in that same namesake. Well, that's not a possibility in our small, sweet town that's like Mayberry, and even if you expand into Santa Barbara. So looking at that and making the pivots throughout the way, As Ever was a name that I had loved for so long and had secured several years ago, so thought this is its moment to really tap into that.
So you chose the name a while ago.
Yes.
Was this part of a bigger plan, for a long time?
As Ever was just a sign-off that I really thought felt sentimental and meaningful, and I didn't know what it could be, but it sounded like a very strong brand identity. Again, it wasn't my intention with this, but then when I had to make a pivot and chose to make that pivot rather, it was a really easy one to jump into. Now, what we didn't know, and talk about learnings, was what the demand would be. And when you sell out that quickly, you actually, it's a double-edged sword because it's an incredible thing to happen for any small business and any startup. And at the same time, you don't get the same metrics and learnings about which SKUs and products are the most coveted because it's all gone immediately. So then we prepped for the second seasonal drop and 10x'd our inventory, gave ourselves the time and the space to do that, and thought for sure that would at least last for a couple weeks. That sold out in a couple hours. Over 1,000 people were waiting the hour before anything went live, even though they knew the time. People were just waiting and refreshing. So as you're starting to watch those behaviors, in all fairness, I did say, oh, we're going to need more inventory. And suddenly the conversation goes from at the start of this year talking about a PO of, I don't know, a few thousand jars and lids to my conversation this past week with my partners saying, okay, for the next PO of just the jars and lids for the jam as one specific SKU, we need to do a purchase order of 1 million.
Okay.
And that's a huge jump in just a few months of starting a business. But when you're looking at the demand, certainly looking at the places we're going to evolve into Q4 and really global expansion, chasing isn't the best position to be in. So trying to hear the demand that we've created and meet the moment.
So, I mean, I know so many entrepreneurs and they obsess over the details. And I know you're really involved in the details. How many products have you sold so far? How many customers do you have?
Yes, we have a very significant amount. And I think based on what I just shared with you, you can see where that jump has gone to. We can't share metrics. And I want to be respectful of my business partner as well. But it is extraordinary to see that even though, and I'm a planner. So I'm a planner and I can anticipate where the appetite would come from, pun intended, but also to be able to see the demand and the desire in territories like Australia, UK, Canada. You can see on the back end of the website who is trying to order product and frankly are ordering product to have their friends send to them. So very quickly we knew that we would go from hundreds of thousands to in the world of millions.
And the plan is to go global.
Yes, absolutely.
How long does it take to develop each product? What's that process like?
Yeah, I'm exasperated in some ways by that only because it is such a tedious proposition to scale your own home recipe to something at mass and maintain the same, not just quality, but the same flavor that you're able to do at home. And I think any home cook would say that. If you say, great, can you make your cobbler that I love? I said, great, of course I can make my cobbler. Great, can you make 1 million cobblers? Can you teach someone how to make 1 million cobblers that taste just like the one that you have at home? And I've been really consistent with wanting the quality to be reflective of what I would serve you if you were a guest in my home, what I happily serve my family. So the timeline on that, as you work with best-in-class manufacturers, has still been a bit of a learning curve. I want to taste the fruit, not the sugar. I also have to be conscious of people who really understand canning can say the bricks method when you're going at scale. I mean, now I'm going to get a little nerdy and jammy with you.
I can tell the details.
But there's a lot of detail in it to the point that even if you bring something to a higher heat index too fast, the color of the berries will go a grayscale. Now, there's nothing wrong with the fruit, but the heat will make it turn that way, almost an oxidization. I don't want gray colored jam. So there's lots of tiny nuances that I don't think people would think about. But yeah, give or take the development of each of the recipes to scale about a month until we can lock in the exact formulation and then make sure that it can come out the way that feels reflective of what I make at home.
What about pricing? How did you determine your pricing strategy? Like, what are the margins?
Yes, the pricing I think is key. From my standpoint, I know where I came from. And I remember being, and we're probably around the same age, I remember being in high school and having my after-school job, and all I wanted to do was save up to buy a shirt that said BB.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
that
I
just
had a
said
lot of
BB. And if you could get the one with the rhinestone BB, you really made it. And I always think about that version of me who there might be a brand or a person that you look up to and you want to have a piece of what they're sharing in the world. And that can't be something that is out of price range. That can't be something that is so aspirational, you're never going to be able to afford it. There is something I think really important in that the first hero product was this $9 jar of jam, which my 15-year-old self would have been able to buy. And then after you finish the jam, you could use that to put your flowers in it, little jar, or your pens on your desk. And I liked the idea of having something that just felt signature in that way, and keepsake packaging and affordable. And interestingly, as we've continued to expand, so most of those products outside of the limited edition honey, under $20, then it was everything about under $20. And that's why when we thought about the expansion into the wine category, how do you meet the demand and the quality and still meet our customers where they are? Getting that to a price point that I felt was fair and affordable, about $30 for a bottle.
So you want it to be accessible, but also aspirational.
Yes, and I think it can be both, and certainly look a certain way, right? So if you were going to relate it to fashion, could it look like Loro Piana but cost J. Crew? And I've always had a sensibility in how I dress with high-low, because it's what I could afford, but also even as Rachel Zane on Suits, I was so involved in her wardrobe. And Jolie, the costume designer, and I, we worked really hard to say, let's have her dress like a real woman. I was one of the only characters that re-wore pieces and mixed and matched them, because I think that's how I would use my own closet. And so you can take it from fashion or beauty, or now in, as we see, consumables with As Ever, it's the same ethos. How can you have someone have a piece of this in their home and feel as though it's accessible and it's theirs?
Yeah. So between the show and As Ever, the podcast,
it's been a busy year.
It's been a busy year. You were off social media for years, and now you're back on. Do you feel like you're sort of launching a new you or rebranding yourself?
No, I think, how funny, no. I think I finally get to share the me that's been here for so long that people maybe haven't had the same visibility to. Coming back on Instagram was a really big decision, but also it's just been joyful. And I'm really intentional in using it as a platform to share joy and to have fun as well, and to explore a little bit, to see, as I was saying to someone else recently, when I was on Instagram, Boomerang was around. It's a completely different world now. And I mean, there were no stories. All of these constructs that people are used to now didn't exist. So I get to play and explore. I play in public.
You're really putting yourself out there. Where do you get that willingness to take that risk?
I would say that I do it for my kids, and I do to a certain extent, but also you get to a point where you're doing it for yourself. I think for me personally, what are the options? I could choose to be creative and take risks and play and have that level of perspective, or I could put all the weight of the world on my shoulders, which sometimes it can feel that way regardless. But what's the point of life if you're not going to be curious and explore and try? And I really do believe that. I mean, my barometer for success might not be the same as yours or the media's. And I think because I went into it really confidently with what I'm sharing in the world and what I believe the brand ethos is, it's not that it took the pressure off, and it certainly didn't take the foot off the gas, but it did let me go into it with the perspective that I'm already succeeding just by taking this risk. I'm already succeeding by showing my kids and modeling what it can look like to be a working mom, and that people really love the products. So whether I sold 10 jars of jam or 10,000 or hundreds of thousands, it still to me felt successful.
I want to talk a little bit about season 1 and season 2. Authenticity seems to be what people really want these days. And personally, I find it hard to give it to them sometimes. Like, it's hard to be that raw and real. Do you feel that? Do you feel like it's hard to sort of show your whole self?
I wouldn't say that it's hard, but I hear you when you say that, because it is putting yourself in a position of vulnerability.
Yeah.
I waffle with some of my choices before I make them. I'm generally very decisive, but social media is a great barometer for this for me, because putting out a video of myself 9 months pregnant was a really big choice, but I also wanted people to see themselves in my story and our story, and to be able to show that with all the noise that might happen in the world on a day-to-day basis, real life is still happening behind the scenes. Really real life. It's not always glamorous and pretty or polished, and that's what I want to see when I look up to someone or when I connect to someone. I want to know that they're also dealing with the chaos of getting your kids in the car and picking up Cheerios on the ground in the morning, and you have 2 different shoes on. That's real. And that's what happens to all of us. I think demystifying this idea that if you have means or if you have a really privileged life, that everything is all pulled together with a beautiful bow. That is, it's just not true. And it's okay that it's not true. Actually, part of the beauty of life is in all the other little moments that you get to learn and figure it out and clean up a mess.
Yeah, but you put that out there and some people, like, they tear it apart, you know?
I'm sure they did, I don't know. But I also protect myself from seeing that.
Well, are we seeing the real you? Or do you think you'll always have a bit of a guard up?
I don't think there's much more realness I can show than that video. And also, even with Love Meghan, I get to just really enjoy my guests and be relaxed. I'm sure people like to pick anything apart. That seems to be the way of the world these days, sadly.
It's been interesting preparing for this interview because every day you search for your name and there's like 1,000 different news stories about 1,000 different things.
I know.
That's your real life.
Yes. I guess the distinction there, as we were touching on this a little bit earlier, is those people don't know me and they're not talking about me. And that's a really hard place to come to terms with. Yeah. But that's the truth. So if you can really compartmentalize it and go, oh, right, there is a very, very powerful machine, and it's all about generating income. Those stories aren't just appearing because it's fun. Clickbait has a huge financial implication. If I'm part of an SEO and that gets them more clickbait, then yes, they're incentivized to churn out as many stories, false or damaging or whatnot, to feed the beast because that's paying them. And I think a lot of people forget the economic element of it. And I think from my standpoint, that's why I don't look at it. It would be very hard to see anything about yourself that isn't true. But equally, it's not me that they're talking about. It's some caricature they've had to create to get clicks. I'm very clear on the difference between the two.
The show hit the top 10.
Yeah.
Globally.
Globally, yeah.
And yet there were mixed reviews. How did that land for you?
I think I knew who I was trying to meet. And so if you know your audience, you know your demographic, well, they love the show. And my partners love the show, and that's why we have a season 2 and why we have more fun coming. I think oftentimes the negative voices, again, are they saying negative things and then secretly going home and making single skillet spaghetti? Possibly. And that's all right. They're trying to pay their bills, and that's for them to sort out if they're comfortable doing it at someone else's detriment. From my standpoint, the intention of the show was to share more of myself, to share tips that I love in my life, and to have fun. And we achieved all of those things and made a really incredible show with an amazing crew, and we could keep doing it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's great. Everybody else, I don't know.
The Netflix of it all. You have a really unique relationship with them. How does it work? Like, take us behind the curtain.
Sure.
Who has the last word?
Creatively, they very graciously said, no, this is your baby and this is your brand. So all creative decisions and final decisions like that end up with me. Though the CPG division might be newer for a lot of people to hear about, they have been doing that with a lot of shows and brands that they've had and been in the consumables territory and market. So for example, with Stranger Things, they've introduced a line of ice creams or pizzas. So they have a lot of incredible suppliers and manufacturers that they are comfortable working with. And then I'm able to try the products, work with those teams as well, and then sort of green light. So not as much searching. And then I would say, look, we began our relationship with Netflix 5 years ago, purely as a production company with R12 Productions to put great content out. And we've managed to have some wonderful shows and docuseries that we're really proud of. And then with the evolution of that, we're able to see the ambition of it being something larger than just the production deal. So the evolution of our partnership now is them doubling down in their support of As Ever, especially as we talk about the global expansion and different territories we can go into. And the show complements that.
Yeah. But there's this take that you're glorifying homemaking or glorifying trad wives.
Oh, really? That feels odd to me.
How do you respond to that?
That feels odd to me. I mean, I hadn't heard that. I'm really unapologetic about the fact that, though, would it be lovely to go and churn your own butter? Sure, maybe. I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And I don't think you get an extra gold star if you do that. For me, a lot of it is how do you show up thoughtfully? I don't have time to make dinner every night. I wish I did. I don't have time for that. I'm great at ordering takeout and plating it beautifully. And look, and yes, do I have small things where even on my kids' plates, I wipe the side of the plate? Someone might go, oh my gosh, that's so ridiculous. For me, that's 2 seconds where I get to present something that looks a little bit more beautiful. I have absolutely no judgment on trad wives. If that works for them, then they should do it. And frankly, anyone who has a criticism on that, why? That's their life. For me, I think finding the hybrid model that works for you, if that means takeout all day, every day, go live your best life. Yeah. And if that means making everything from scratch, then go and do that. But for me, I think there is an in-between. Joy for me comes in finding that sweet spot in the middle.
Yeah. There's this flywheel effect when you link content and commerce.
Yeah.
How do you think the show impacts As Ever, and what's the strategy there?
Yeah, I think you're definitely onto something. And, you see that model play itself out in other, not even platforms. Platforms, yes, but prior to that, if you look at other channels, I won't name the ones that I'm thinking of specifically, but they were really wise about bringing in a show and launching a brand off the heels of it, and using the two to really pull the levers. Now, the difference here is I had the ideation for my brand in advance, and the show was in development. They don't have the same name, but they are in a complementary world of each other. And I think when you're able to see something, and then whether you want to make it or not, you can choose that route. Or you could say, or I could buy something that comes from the same universe. So it's not merch, but it is something that I think really is an extension of what we're creating that you see on the show, like show and tell.
Yeah.
I'll show you how I do it. I can tell you if you want to go and buy it over here. Otherwise, let's make it together.
I'm curious about your takeaways from the hits and misses, because you've done some other things. You had this deal with Spotify that,
oh yeah,
I don't know, it went for a year or so.
I can't remember how long it went for, but Archetypes was very successful.
What were the sort of lessons there? What did you learn about yourself and about your audience?
The audience, that was the first indication that I had in this new chapter of my life of how global the audience was, because it was, I want to say 30 plus countries that it went to number one in non-English speaking, where English isn't the first language, rather.
Yeah.
So France, for example, has a huge podcast community, but most of their podcasts in the top 10 are in French. And so being able to see that metric, especially on a thematic that was pretty niche, Archetypes was very niche in terms of what we were discussing, that was a helpful reminder of the global reach and desire to sort of see what I was going to put out in the world. I think I also learned at that time, look, we were in our partnership with Netflix, but had very close personal relationships. And with Spotify, it's another large conglomerate and business company that I think for me, I really love and embrace working with a small hands-on team. And that I had in my team that was producing the podcast with me. So Terry Wood, for example, she's incredible. She was with Oprah for years, and she was my primary producer on Archetypes. So that was helpful knowledge to translate when we went to Lemonada, and to work with a small female-founded team that could really be like-minded and meet me in the conversation that I wanted to share. That was a huge learn. Another big learn from that was people said, we love hearing her, but we want to see her. And it wasn't a videotaped podcast. It was just voice. I wanted people to relax and say, if you want to have your hair in a towel and have deep conditioner on, you do whatever you want. Let's just chat. But that was a helpful learn, which I think was catalyzing for having the With Love Meghan series. So you could have both.
Celebrity brands are all the rage right now. It seems like every day, someone's launching a new skincare line or a beauty line or tequila. What's going to make yours stand out? What makes yours different?
I mean, I had a lot of options of things that I could jump into. The authenticity is probably what will help it stand apart. Also the price point. I think certainly when we're looking at economically what's happening right now, you really want things to be in a range that people can still have a piece of, whatever ends up happening with our economy. More than anything, I've just poured so much love into this brand. And I would say the same for so many of these celebrities who probably have dreamed of something for a long time. And at the same time, when they see it come to fruition, for a lot of them, are they writing copy and doing all these things? Maybe they are, which I think is incredible. And so I think from my standpoint, as long as you're authentic, you really have a strong business plan, you know what your North Star is, then I think you're in pretty good shape. Everyone is putting out something unique in the world, even if it feels like there's a million tequilas. I'm sure they all have a different point of view in some regard. And I really do believe that a high tide raises all boats. I believe that. I think there's room for all of us.
Yeah. I mean, there's speculation you want to get into hospitality. Are there
in what
hotels?
Way? Oh, gosh.
Restaurants? Beauty, fashion? What's on the horizon?
Ooh, that's a lot of stuff. I mean, we were just talking about how I'm trying to narrow the scope of what I'm doing because it's a lot. I do not at this moment have any aspiration of getting into hotels and hospitality. That's the first I've heard that one. I just think even a B&B would be a lot to run. I'm open to the possibilities of what can happen, certainly in the expansion of As Ever, and then knowing that I'm in my 40s, so it's still a lot of time to develop and iterate on other ways to dream. I would not put beauty or fashion out of the mix. I think those are things that people associate with me, and it's categories that I really love. I just wanted to start with something that felt a little bit closer to home.
So what is the grand vision for As Ever? What do you want it to be? What don't you want it to be?
Yes, I don't want it to feel generic. I don't want it to feel cookie cutter. I'll start with the don'ts. I don't want it to feel like it was phoned in. And I know that it would be impossible to feel that way because I know how much time I spend on it, from soup to nuts. But I want it to be something that people feel excited to have in their home, and especially that people feel excited to gift. I oftentimes find myself, you go, oh, what's the hostess gift that I can give? Whether you're making something from your home, or you found some great produce at the farmer's market, or you say, I'm bringing you a pot of jam. I just hope that there's always a piece of it that people can hold on to and share in a really meaningful way, and that then it becomes a staple. But that starts with consumables. So we've invited you into the kitchen. And then the natural expansion of that is, where else in the home are we going to invite you? In the garden? Well, what are we going to use out there that will make your garden experience better? What are we going to use when you're setting up a guest room that might make your experience better? So the verticals are vast, but they're also very clearly connected to the core of what the brand is about, which really is elevating the everyday, but it's stemming from the garden. What are the things from my garden I can bring into my home and then share throughout the space?
Do you have any backers other than Netflix?
No.
Or are you looking for other investors?
At the moment, no. Netflix is my partner and investor.
So what is the path to profitability?
The scaling is going to be key, and certainly we look at the show continue to be not a marketing tool, but a complement to the brand, as we discussed. I think expansion into different territories is going to be very big for us, and certainly shifting out of D2C, not necessarily into brick and mortar of our own, but in finding the right retail partners that make sense to be on the shelves. What's the story we're telling? And how do we merchandise that story in a way that you walk in and have a real experiential feeling of, oh my gosh, I've been watching this on Instagram. I was watching her on her show. I can see these, and then you can walk into it. And you can step into it and have all the things that you might need that complement each other, that match, that have the same taste levels. I think that will be a really big inflection point for us, shifting out of D2C, and that path to profitability will reflect that.
So you want to see As Ever on store shelves. Do you want to
Yes.
see it at Target or Williams-Sonoma or?
I think a key retail partner is going to be very valuable. And also, look, if you look at the categories, it might not just be one. We might have exclusivity in certain ones that make sense for the consumables, but as you expand into candles or things throughout the home, where do those live that it makes sense? So it's multiple partners, and then of course when you look at global territories, where does it make the most sense there? And which territories first, as you talk about compliance, especially for food products, that's a lot of development. So the other pieces of it, I think, it's just finding the right home, and there's a lot of interest, which is fantastic, but I know that all those decisions really matter. So being thoughtful in the choice.
Why do this with Netflix? Why not raise money on your own where you might have more control? You might have more financial upside.
Yeah, that had been my plan. And I thought that it would be great just to build out my own team and really do it purely on my terms. But then I also would say, when Bella and I spoke and Netflix made a really compelling sell about why Netflix would be such a great partner, I had the history of having worked with them for now several years. So there's a great shorthand. And to really be able to have a network that I could tap into from them, which, yes, could come with different private equity or VC without question. And I have friends who've built businesses. A lot of female founders are my closest friends, and all very supportive. So I was fortunate in that as a startup, I had options. But I chose Netflix because I really think that having a partner that I have a shorthand with was key, and also exploring it at the onset. If we want to end up opening that aperture a little bit, we can for funding, but at the moment we're okay.
The Meghan effect. I don't know if you've heard about this one.
I've heard about that one.
This concept that you can transform a small business by wearing or using their products. How do you make decisions about what to wear or what to feature, knowing that you can have that level of impact?
Yeah, it's hugely flattering, and it's also, I take it seriously. Up until then, there was always speculation on what I might be wearing, and then you'd find different media outlets would put it up with their affiliate sales, and they might sell out on a shirt, but it wasn't the shirt of that female founder that I was choosing to support. And that was really interesting for me because a lot of my choices, especially when I wasn't using my voice as often, my fashion choices were decisive. And they were really designed to uplift a lot of smaller brands that people might not know about, especially female-founded brands and designers, and supporting friends as well. So from my standpoint, even having Shop My on Instagram has been an interesting exploration because I'm able to say, these are the actual brands, and people can find what they're looking for if they wanted to emulate the style. But yeah, it's flattering that you can move product without leaving the house, and that there's that much fascination in a skirt.
You've been doing some angel investing.
Yes.
I saw that you called it Dolphin Tank as opposed to Shark Tank.
Well, I love Shark Tank, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I love watching that show. I just wanted to approach it with friendly waters.
Yeah, well, there are sharks out there, let's be honest.
Yes.
How do you learn to swim with the great whites?
Oh, so eloquent. It's so cinematic as well. I'm just really, really considered in my approach of who I want to invest in and work with, specifically women at different generations. I think it's key. I'm trying to tap into what are our needs going to continue to evolve to need, and how are they going to continue to evolve, and what are we going to need at different stages in our lives. So whether it's MIDI with perimenopause and menopause support, or supporting a younger entrepreneur like Hannah Mendoza, who created Clever, which is also filling a need of how you start your day. What's your intention of it? How do you take care of yourself? All of it really stems with different versions of how women are caring for ourselves and our families. A friend of mine, I just recently invested in her company called Pilata, which I'm proud of. It's an at-home reformer, which in a very short amount of time, you can take care of your body. So as a working mom, you say, I don't have an hour. I have an hour to go and work out. And so finding things that I say, oh, that's a practical use that I would have in my home. And I know that will help someone else as well. And equally, it's not just the concept that I'm investing in, it's the founder. And really knowing how I can be valuable for them. If I don't think that I can add value for them, my association with the brand, yes, it might have that effect. But I want to be more valuable than just the clickbait version. I want to be able to bring really sound investors to their cap table. I want to be able to open up their network for them. I want to be able to be a soundboard and just a place for advice and to help them grow. That's part of the relationship building that I do when I look at my portfolio.
Yeah. What's the bigger strategy? Like, are you looking at AI or biotech or e-commerce or?
Fintech's really important and interesting to me. AI, man, aren't you a little bit scared by AI? We have to just a little. I mean, we have to make peace with it. The world is changing. Our lives are changing. So there are certain things that I just don't know enough about to want to jump in with both feet. And at the same time, I have a great team that can help with advising me on what seems like a sound investment. But yes, I mean, when it comes to women, finance, healthcare, and tech, yes. I mean, that is the world that we live in. And I think finding the ways that those make sense for my portfolio, they have to make sense for me organically. If I'm not going to use it, if it's not going to be part of my life, it's not something I genuinely believe in, I am not financially backing it. That doesn't feel correct to me. It wouldn't be fair to the brand either.
Yeah. Are you using AI?
Last week someone talked about ChatGPT, which of course everyone's talking about ChatGPT. I hadn't experienced it before. I'm shocked. But again, as we talked about, I'm a little bit vintage in many ways because I'm from a time capsule of handwritten notes and putting a stamp on a letter and mailing it. And yeah, it's not something that is part of my day-to-day, but you have to imagine Siri's not on my phone. I don't have location services. I'm not caught up in the day-to-day tech things that most people are. But yeah, I'm sure it will end up being a part of our life in some capacity. How could it not?
AI recipes. I mean, AI recipes are huge. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
This is new.
Oh yeah, you can say, I have these 5 things in my fridge. What should I make?
No, what you should do is read Tom Colicchio's Think Like a Chef, which is one of the best books written by a chef, frankly, because it teaches you, I don't want people to lose critical thinking. I don't want people to lose critical thinking. That was one of the best books I ever read that helped me navigate being in a kitchen, so that you weren't looking at a recipe and going, I don't have this before Instacart. There's no version of, you have to go to the store to buy these key ingredients. No, Think Like a Chef was transformative because what it says is, a chef will look in a kitchen in the pantry and say, I've got this. I know what I can whip up. I think it's great if AI can help with recipes, but I also would encourage people in the same way that I do. Cooking can be so playful and life can be so serious. And if you can find a moment where you can play a little bit, I think your day will probably be a little bit better. I love that about being in the kitchen, to experiment and play and figure it out. That's part of the joy of it, and I get to share that with my kids.
Do you and Harry do deals together? Any deals?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's a great investor, and we look for different things in investments. We share some, and we also have separate portfolios.
So what's the sort of working together strategy?
What do we both believe in? What do we think is really going to move the needle in terms of value alignment? And we're very value aligned. So, again, my portfolio gleans more towards women. And my husband served 10 years in the military. He's obviously very minded about how we show up and do good, how we can be of service. And he looks at it through different lenses as well. So kind of concentric circles.
You've talked about how important it is to be financially literate, especially for women to
absolutely.
be financially literate. Talk a little bit about your own journey around money, learning how to make it, learning how to manage it.
Yeah, I've always been very financially responsible. And I don't know, where does that come from? Certainly as an auditioning actor, you are paycheck to paycheck. So you're very mindful about how you spend. But I grew up clipping coupons. I grew up looking for deals. It's like you just find all the places where you find a gift. And, my grandfather had a really small antique shop. So I also grew up watching the energy of people bartering. People would come into an antique shop where he would also have a little stand at the Fairfax flea market. And I would help him when I was a little girl on weekends. And also when I was in high school, I'd go, it was every Sunday, I think. I'd go and bring him lunch and help. But I would watch exchanges in that way. I'm actually really struck by it now because everything is so digital and on a card, even for our own children. Curious with yours, they don't actually touch coins and money, and to be able to see that transaction. We were at a bouncy house place 2 weekends ago or last weekend, and they also had those sort of Chuck E. Cheese-esque, like the carnival machines. But everything had to be on a card. And I thought, well, no, what happened to the days of they get tickets, exactly how many tickets, and you'll get a coin, and you get the tickets. There's something about transactions that aren't as clear anymore when everything is on a card or digitized. And I do think the way in which I approached money was always saving, always being mindful about what I would save up for. I would invest in things of quality. I would also really use my funds. I always worked. My first job was when I was 13. I've shared that before at a frozen yogurt shop called Humphrey Yogurt. But I worked at a donut store. I worked in retail. I worked at a restaurant as a hostess. I was a calligrapher.
Gift wrapping.
Taught gift wrapping class. I've had a lot of jobs over the years. And when you work really hard, you value what you've earned. I think that translates into how I invest. It translates into how I spend, what I teach my children. And I think it's incredibly important for young women, especially, to have a sense of why it matters for her to earn her own money and to be able to be financially independent. That's not about anything other than being self-reliant. The more that you're able to take care of yourself, especially as a woman, then you're making practical choices in your life that are not hindered by a need being met by someone external. Taking care of yourself is so key, and it's the most empowering thing in the world. So I think it's important that young girls have financial literacy.
We actually did our first lemonade stand this weekend.
How did it go?
My daughter was asking for it.
Good.
It was awesome, and I think they learned a lot. They're like, oh, this isn't so easy as it's not as easy as it looks. People showed up with real money, and I realized that I don't know if she's ever counted money before. I don't think she has, because people just don't use real money.
It's changed so much.
But it was such a great experience to have that whole sort of cycle.
And did they make the lemonade?
They made the lemonade. We added some ice cream.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we do an ice cream stand too. I think about lemonade stand when I was a little girl. We didn't sit around squeezing lemons. We had one little lemon tree in front of the duplex that we lived in. But that wasn't enough lemons to make a whole thing of lemonades. We would use those frozen Minute Maid cans that you would twist and just add some water.
Very flavorful.
Very flavorful. And by the way, it's just the act of, you have to see it through. For a child, I think that's part of the learning. You have to see it through from, I made this, so I value it. Someone is paying for it, so they value it. And what am I going to do with these funds now?
Right.
Because I worked really hard and I've got to clean it all up, and now I have a choice to make. But that's so key, and I love that you did that. Now you're going to have your sticky fingers every weekend making lemonade.
I know. I think they're hooked. We talked about, especially the importance of women being financially literate. Bigger picture, what do you see going on with women in culture and business and politics? It feels like so often women are a target, and then often they opt out of the fray. Do you see that?
I think what I'm struck by when I watch women in leadership positions, in any of those verticals you just mentioned, women who are trying to break through, what I find the most troubling is that oftentimes the hindrance for their success is other women not being supportive. I find that so painful because I grew up going to an all-girls school and I was in a sorority, and I've been around such a camaraderie of women. And now as an adult, my girlfriends span in age from in their 30s to in their 70s. So I have these multi-generational friendships. And I think every woman would say to you, gosh, can we get out of each other's way of being successful? Because we've all experienced some version of it. But why? And at what cost? And actually, it ends up being such a distraction from the larger purpose. Whereas as women, if we can support each other entirely, certainly in business, you have more of a rallying cry to encourage women to keep going. But I do think it ends up being probably too challenging for most people. There are a few that are in the media lens as much as someone like I am.
Few.
Few. This is a grain of salt. And, so I have a thicker skin, but again, I've designed it so I protect myself from the noise that's going to limit me. But if it's new for you, one story, one, not 1,000 in a day, one in a day would be enough for most people to have that be the story that they tell for the rest of their life. Like, oh my gosh, do you remember when this horrible story was written about me? And that's enough to make most people go, I'm not going to do it. In that regard, I would say, my gosh, if women across the board with each other can be supportive as we are climbing to get to the top of whatever corporate ladder you're on or whatever your personal journey is, frankly, and that people aren't trying to have a gotcha moment or to make something snarky and salacious just for the purpose of clicks. That's penny wise, pound foolish. What are you actually doing for us as women when you're cutting us down as we're just trying to succeed? We're just trying to do the best that we can. And I think women have a large role in that to be able to move the needle.
Do you feel like you have to be perfect? Do you feel like you have to curate what you show us or be a more polished version of the Meghan that you are, like, just at home putting your feet up on the couch?
I did feel that for a while. Even though I wasn't seeing it, you could feel the energy of it. So you feel a lot of pressure to go, is this hair out of place? I bet it is. But I'm okay with it. Is someone going to say something about anything? Probably. Once you make peace with the fact that they're going to say something about anything, then that's a hard place to get, where you can make peace with that. Then I think you just settle into being yourself. But whether you're high profile or not, it's hard to be a teenager. It's hard to be in your 20s. It's hard to be a mom for the first time. Every chapter, we're figuring it out for the first time. Every single chapter. And then you layer in just the natural change that happens as we get older. My friends and I would just talk about brain fog all the time. You're like, there are things that are just naturally going to be part of a new chapter of our life. I really think you just have to have a little compassion for that. But perfection is not the goal. I don't think there's anything valuable about trying to be perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. I guess my version of the closest thing to perfection would be being really comfortable in your own skin. And I do think that comes with time. God bless you if you're in your 20s and you feel that way. I would trade my 20s with you any day if you feel so comfortable in who you are. That takes time and, maybe a lot of therapy.
If you could choose one thing for people to know the truth about you, what would that one thing be?
No one's ever asked me that. No. What a great question. The one thing, oh gosh, what's the one thing? Oh gosh, I think when I sit with it for a second here, I just want people to know that I'm a real person. And I think a lot of that gets lost in what can be super dehumanizing when you look at the clickbait culture and how much is written about someone. It's like, no, my friends have to read those things. Like I have real best friends, the same ones since I was 17. I'm a real mom. I choose to go and do school pickup and drop off, but I do that under a landscape that is created that forgets that I'm a real person. And so for those things, I think, I could expand on that quite a bit, but ultimately that's what it comes down to. And how would you want someone to treat a real person in your life that you cared about or loved or respected? And so there's something about that, I think, that often gets lost. And even though earlier I was saying you can compartmentalize, I say that's a caricature. Yes, but my kids will see those magazines, and we all know moms gossip. And so I have to make a choice to move through the world as myself in spite of all the noise that's created. But maybe there would be less noise if people remembered that I'm a real person.
You're a real person.
Yeah.
I'm here, and I can attest to the fact
Pinch me,
that
I'm
you're a
real. She's real.
person.
She's a real person.
What do you want more than anything in the world?
I have it. I have a beautiful, healthy family. We're happy. We're safe. We have an amazing community of support surrounding us. There's nothing else that I need.
What scares you more than anything in the world?
Well, the state of the world right now is scary.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. So I would depersonalize that. I would say probably the same things that scare everyone else, especially when you have children. You want your family to be safe. You want your children to grow up in a world that is certainly more peaceful than it feels in this present moment.
What's a scene in your life
Yes.
that changed everything, but nobody else would have thought was pivotal?
Oh, boy. I mean, there's an obvious one, but I think everyone probably thinks it was pretty pivotal when I went on this date with this guy from London. It changed a lot of things. What is less expected or less known? That's pretty pivotal. Outside of that, and I've talked about it again, becoming a mom, hugely pivotal for me. There are a lot of catalyst moments.
Well, and here we are as you're writing your next chapter. Maybe we're in like the next chapter of your next chapter.
It's a long book.
Yeah, indeed.
There are a lot of chapters. I mean, life is full of surprises. And I think the more that I can just embrace that and celebrate it, and say, okay, here's another adventure. Something happened yesterday. My friend was at the house staying with me, and she goes, oh my gosh, it's only 9 a.m. and you're dealing with all of this? I said, oh, it's just Monday. So if you can take it with that grain of salt and that perspective, all of these moments can be super catalyzing. But I think I will flip that on its head.
Thank you for letting us read this chapter.
Oh, thank you for reading it with me. Yeah, I appreciate it too. Thanks, crew. Thank you, guys.
I think we're gonna go eat some burgers.
They're so good.
Yes.
Do you like a smash burger?
Beer?
Just days after this interview, Netflix announced that following its 5-year, $100 million deal with Meghan and Harry, they've signed a less exclusive first look deal, similar to the Obamas. Critics seem to view this as a setback, but studios have cut back on deals like this in general. And really, it means Netflix still has first dibs on anything they develop. A season 3 is TBD, but Netflix is promising a holiday special with Meghan and has expanded its partnership with As Ever. Thanks so much for listening to this edition of The Circuit. You can catch the full episode and see us chowing down on burgers and beer on Bloomberg Originals. I'm Emily Chang, your host and executive producer. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and X at Emily Chang TV. Our showrunner is Lauren Ellis. Our producer is Victoria Lacey. This is edited by Gramercy Post. You can watch new episodes of The Circuit on Bloomberg Television or streaming on the Bloomberg app or YouTube.